Hello, this is Sadhana. Welcome back to another decan. This is the third decan of Leo. Perhaps the most important card we'll talk about today is the Seven of Wands, and I will get to that shortly. But in a previous episode, I said that I was going to weave in the connection of the aces and the pages, which are cards that are not often included in a decan walk, but are certainly an important part of understanding the Golden Dawn zodiacal correspondences. When we look at the Golden Dawn wheel of zodiacal correspondences, you can see that the pages are divided among three signs. So the wheel is divided into quarters. You can see these stars here, my well scribbled on wheel here. And each of the pages is assigned to three signs. The middle sign for each of the pages is a fixed sign. And as I mentioned previously, this means that their strongest energy or their strongest connection is in fixed signs. So that is Taurus and Leo and Scorpio and Aquarius. And you know that in working with the tarot that there are several cards that lean to this energy as well. I'm thinking of the wheel and the world major arcana cards. And the card that we're looking at today, the Page of Wands and the Ace of Wands, is really strong in this energy of Leo. And in my reflection before I came on today and in the past few days of the Seven of Wands, I've just been thinking about how important the pages are to this particular decan, and I'm starting to develop yet another layer, more associations to sevens in general. And I have to say that this is one of the strongest reasons for doing a decan walk, in that we just build repertoire. We learn so much about the cards and the connection of cards. And I hate to repeat myself, but there is a lot to learn in studying the tarot. And I know I've picked on this deck several times. This is the Wildwood Tarot. It follows the wheel of the year, connected to the Sabbats, very different associations as far as dates go with each of the cards in this tarot. You can also assign each of the cards to a particular 10 days or so. However, it is I don't know if it's the reading between the lines or the connections that one weaves through spirit. We can gain wisdom through decks that don't necessarily follow a Golden Dawn zodiacal wheel. And I have to say that may also be true with creators of decks such as the one I have on the table. I cannot tell you if Celia Melville in the creation of the Lily White Tarot or Lacey Bryant in the creation of the Slow Tarot sat with a Golden Dawn zodiacal wheel and reflected on the energy of the wheel in terms of building more correspondences among the tarot. I don't know that. Rarely is that discussed in guidebooks. However, because these layers can be very subtle and go beyond and between the general meanings of cards, they tend to just appear. And it's kind of brilliant the more that you learn about the tarot, how you can weave these stories together. I will come back to the page and the ace. I want to go back to this card here. This is the Seven of Bows from the Wildwood. And the key word for this one is clearance. On this card, you see a bow. The bowstring is broken. The bow itself is well used. The handle is worn, and its time has come to either be restrung or to not do that and to burn the bow. I'm sure there is some sort of ceremony to release the energy of the bow. The hunter simply wouldn't toss their bow to the land I imagine it would be burned in some kind of a ceremonial fire, if not personally with community. It's not part of the discussion of this card, however. So we see the bow, the worn one here, and then we see 6 pieces of wood that are ready to be made into bows. You can see they have been crafted, carved with a thicker spot in the middle. And isn't it kind of beautiful how these pieces of wood rest against this mighty oak, leaning into its energy and the greater meaning of what clearance might mean in relation to the 7 of bows or the 7 of wands. One of the most important things in this card is the fire in the background. The fire where energy is released and transformed. And we can assume that this bow will enter that fire and its energy will be transformed. Another important part of the keyword clearance has to do with the benefit of clearing away forest debris, making space in the forest floor, removing dead trees for new life. The idea that in order for something to grow, in order for the wheel to turn, there is work that must be done. This doesn't happen on its own. Our participation is very important here. And our participation, a joint effort with nature itself, acknowledges and honors our connection to the energy of change and the energy of time and seasons. And as I sat and reflected on this card and all that we are witnessing in the process of this card, the path itself, the clearing that has happened to create that path. And so how does this fit into an aha moment that I had with the page and the Ace of Wands? Well, I reflected on the path and this process, this journey of the bow, the dissolution, the letting go, the releasing of the bow, the process of creating the bow stave, the connection of the stave to the tree. And I began to think, well, there's quite a learning curve here. There's a skill to be learned in order to create a bow. There's a great deal of energy that has happened for this bow to become worn out. And in the foreground, we see the worn out bow. And in the distance, we see the fire that it may be transformed through. And then in the midground, we see the source of the bow staves and 6 other unfinished bows resting against that great tree. And the piece that came to me was, well, in order to create, we need to release. And I'm not sure that that is something that I have thought about in terms of other 7s of fire. I find the 7 of Wands from the Slow Tarot very inspiring. There's tremendous concentration in the gaze of the figure that is ascending the ladder. I'm assuming they are ascending. You can see the hand reaching upward. And they are moving through all that fire represents. And there is focus and purpose and determination. And I think that the fire represents that which they are releasing. There's something that has been learned. And with determination and knowledge, the decision has been made to go forward. And so I asked myself about the 7s in general. In all of the 7s, do we release something? Do we need to let something go in order to grow through the lesson of the 7? Now, of course, there are lessons and learning in every single card in the tarot. But what is it about the pages and these fixed signs that feels a little more significant. Why do we receive the gift of the aces in the fixed signs? Why would their energy be more directly connected with their corresponding element and its fixed sign? So Ace of Fire is Leo, Ace of Water is Scorpio, Ace of Swords is Aquarius, and so on. Does this tell us something about the fixed signs and Keter? Does this help to bring some clarity about the Wheel and the World card that usually contain the 4 fixed signs around the corners of the card? Does it better connect the Wheel card as a 10, a 1 plus 0, to the 1 of the Ace? And I think it does. And I think that in the fixed signs, because they can be quite murky, mucky, the lessons can be quite difficult to navigate through. We need the determination, we need the light-hearted spirit, the innocent energy of the pages to help us move through. That devil-may-care kind of attitude. I can do this, I'm going to do this, and if I don't know how, I'm going to figure out how to do it. And of course, each of the pages approaches their problem, their situation, with a different attitude. And I think the curiosity that the pages possess is exactly what we need in order to better navigate the issues of the fixed signs. The other connection, of course, is that the home of the pages is in Malkut and has a great connection to the 10 minor cards. So the 10s are in Malkut, home of the pages, and we have this direct line to the aces in Keter. So what this tells me is that there's something about these fixed signs that has maybe a greater pull. I almost feel it like a magnetic energy to want to become balanced, to strive for an experience of this central path. And in the case of strength, the path of this card is a horizontal path that connects the right and left pillar in the center of the tree. Strength crosses, it supports, it connects. It is a building block for harmony and for peace. It sits just above Tiferet, where we find the sun and the sun card. So the pages are fundamental to our earthly experience. They take us through the middle pillar, through Tiferet, through the energy of the sun, crossed by strength, up to the path of the high priestess, where we find the energy of the aces in Keter. And so there is something very special about this particular page and ace, because it is the only one with a correspondence to its connecting major arcana that passes through the central pillar. So please let me know if you have any aha moments in terms of adding these cards to this particular decan or your decan walk in general. In the sign of Leo, we have journeyed from the 5 to the 6 to the 7 of Wands. This is the slow tarot. This is Lily White tarot. I really like these cards in both of these decks. And the decanic rulers of these 3 cards are Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. And so here we find ourselves in a decan of great transformation. Mars is represented by the Tower card, and this is our 3rd martial decan. Mars is the only planet that has 6 decans instead of 5. And so this planet features rather importantly when we're talking about zodiacal and astrological correspondences. The energy of the fives and the journey of the fives, and each of the decans that are associated with the tower are an opportunity to release and to let go of something. And I'm not sure until I sat with the clearance card that this really was loud and clear. With this tower card from the Lily White, I have found myself gazing at the elk, trying to imagine what it must feel like to lose a rack, to lose both of these sets of antlers. The weight, the loss, the lack of protection. Where do I go when this burden has been released so that I can restore and find my way without carrying this load? This has been a great card of teaching for me. Of course, there are other wonderful tower cards, and I have annotated many of those in a video, which I will put a card up above and link in the description box below. My favorite major arcana cards. When this card appears in a reading, I find the need for great pause, and I want to honor the journey that the querent is on and make space for this transition. Know that whether it has been stated or not, that the querent certainly is feeling the weight of this change in their life. And so understanding the energy of the tower is critical in understanding the Seven of Wands. In order to go on, in order to rise above, I have had to let go of something. And it has taken a great deal of courage and strength and fortitude to get to this place. This final decan of Leo shows incredible resilience and perseverance. Now, can I get here with this card? It's a really good question. What have I had to release in order to find the determination and the strength that you witness in this particular Seven of Wands? And I have to laugh because of the connection to the shoes, but I wonder if the shoe on the right foot has been damaged or replaced. I've actually lost a boot and what that might signify. And yet I feel there is so much more here. This card became very important to me during COVID, when two of my daughters went to stand with the ancient cedars in a rather dangerous situation, fighting against corporate forestry and government associations. They learned to live without much food in very challenging conditions, and it takes a willingness to be arrested or dragged or bear sprayed by the police in order to stand for what you believe in. The Seven of Wands is so deeply connected to the journey of Gibberah, the fives, and this place of great, great challenges that are our lives' most important crossroads. If we can persevere through the rain, through the storm, if we can find the strength, the determination, the fire in our own Manipura chakra, stand with our principles, allow the process of transformation through fire to happen, then we can learn the lesson of the Seven of Wands. This is the Way Home Tarot. And when I look at this card, there's so many things that I see in this card, but I remember one time I was reading and I felt like the 6 torches, the 3 on each side, represented elders, ancestors who protected our path as we moved forward. Each rung of the ladder can represent an issue, a step along the way. And there's something about the growth on these rungs. These rungs, these trees are still alive. Our journey is never over. And all that is required is to tap into, I shouldn't say all, the heart of the lion. In this decan, we have a changing of the guard from the King of Fire to the Knight of Earth. How does this slowing down of energy, the condensation of energy, support us through the challenges of the Seven of Wands? And I think it's through this grounding of the Knight of Pentacles that we're able to connect more deeply to our purpose, our intention in the Seven of Wands. Without this grounding energy, we would have already taken flight in the Eight of Wands. And we know that, decanically speaking, it is the Seven of Wands that lands us in the purpose and the peace we find in the Eight of Pentacles. And I find that this Court card also helps us to build understanding of this idea of transformation through fire. That as we release the old, burn the old, we're able to experience the new. Leo is the heart. The sun is Tiferet and the energetic heart space. The home of the knights is in the heart. So just like that connection with the pages and the aces, we find ourselves in a very potently connected deck. This card is from the Moon Tarot, and the court cards are renamed in this deck and yet seem to really capture the energy beautifully of each of the court cards. There is very careful energy in the priestesses that are associated with this second court. And there is more. This decan is also a Venus-Mars story. This decan's ruler is the Tower, Mars. All sevens are connected to Netzach and Venus. And so not only does this emphasize the importance of the building and the bridging of the path of strength on the tree of life, but it also brings into question how the lessons of the Seven of Fire are going to help to balance our lefts and our rights, our masculine and our feminine, the relationships in our life. How does the process of release, the process of letting go, transforming through fire, help us to find harmony within ourselves and within our relationships? This is the beauty of doing a decan walk, is that there are, I don't want to say infinite, but a bountiful number of connections that we can build to deepen our understanding of what any one given card might mean. Would you ever think that the Seven of Wands is a transformative journey that is going to help us to be a better person in relationship? The story of Venus, Mars, lefts and rights, masculine and feminine, appears again and again in the tarot. Spirit wants us to find balance, wants us to find harmony, wants us to find the middle path, the middle pillar. And how interesting that in this Seven of Wands, we find a middle path, and in this Seven of Wands. So many brilliant questions for personal inquiry. And I did pull the other sevens in the tarot, the other cards connected with Netzach, and ask myself that same question. What are we releasing in each of these sevens in order to move through its lessons, to move through its journey? And I think that I found in each of these sevens the need to let go, the need to let go, to move forward, to grow, to learn. Perhaps you could sit with the deck that you are working with in this decan and imagine a conversation between the Page of Fire and the Knight of Pentacles, and how they support one another on the journey back to the central pillar. It's almost as if The Page of Fire sparks the heartbeat of the Knight of Earth. And of course, this relationship is reciprocal in nature. They need each other in order to stay on this path. If you struggle with the energy of the Seven of Wands, perhaps just come back to its heart-centeredness, that the mission, the purpose, the direction of the Seven of Wands comes from a place of deep inner knowing and feeling, and that the reason for the journey of the Seven of Wands, though it may feel like a tower moment, is deeply connected to your reason for being, to your gifts and to your talents. So thank you for joining me for another decan. I look forward to your questions, your comments, your feedback. If you have any favorite Seven of Wands or Knight of Coins cards that you would like to share, please be sure to come back and leave a comment below. Take good care of yourselves. Namaste.